When I started networking in 2018, for real, networking saved my window cleaning business through COVID. I would not be in business. Window Cleaning Plus would not be in existence if it weren't for my network.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush, your own personal sales maven, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master your sales conversation. Today is one of our Mastering Excellence series. This is where we dig again, based on my background in neurolinguistic programming, to the excellence and the structure behind somebody's achieving exceptional results in some area of their life or business. And I'm very excited to talk about and bring on this guest that we're going to talk about today. Our guest today is Faithann Basore. Now, let me tell you a little bit. I'm going to read her bio and then we'll welcome her to the show and talk a little bit more about her. You've probably heard her before. She's definitely been on the show before, but not in this capacity. So, business owner and a teacher at heart, Faithann Basore is the SEO of Window Cleaning Plus, a service-based contracting business that serves the Oklahoma Metro, and CEO of the Networkers Tour Guide, a coaching business that helps business owners develop and implement winning networking strategies. Hint, hint, that's where we're going. Through networking, on behalf of her thriving window cleaning business, Faithann learned and implemented important networking strategies that she now uses to help other small business owners network with confidence and build cheerleaders for their businesses. Faithann is the founder of the Networkers Tour Guide blog, the host of the Networkers Tour Guide podcast, where business owners and sales teams find tips and tricks to network with generosity and build cheerleaders for their brand who happily refer them. Faithann has identified a need in the business community to help others make memorable first impressions and craft succinct, memorable elevator pitches that drive curiosity and make it easy for others to bring you referrals. Faithann, welcome to the show, friend.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm so honored. And when you asked me to be part of this particular series, do you remember Kevin in Home Alone with the face and the hands on the cheeks and the eyes, mouth open? When you asked me, that's what happened. I went, oh, I was so honored because you do a lot for me, and it just to be included in this series was quite overwhelming and honoring.
Oh, you're so sweet to me. Thank you. And I'm so glad you said yes. I will say, I've been, had the really great pleasure of knowing you for quite some time now. You've been in the Sales Maven community. You and I've worked together and, watched as this business, the Networker Tour Guide, has really taken off, and gotten to hear you speak about networking and this idea. And then you launched the podcast a little bit ago, and listening to the podcast, you have this way about networking, the way you think about it, the way you phrase kind of ideas and concepts for people, that I find so engaging and so like you just draw me in. And I remember listening to a podcast episode of yours not too long ago, and just the kind of back and forth between you and the guest, but the ideas that you were coming up with for her and talking through at the networking, I was like, oh man, gotta have you on the show. I want people to hear this, because networking is such a big, important part for many of us as business owners. And yet it's often not done well, right? And, you go to these networking meetings and you hear people just kind of regurgitate the same old thing over and over again. And after you've been at that, if you've been involved in this particular group for a while, like you've heard their spiel so many times. And it's kind of like, when you leave something on the counter and you think you're going to put it away, and then you walk by it, and then 2 weeks go by and you don't even see it on the counter anymore, right? Like it's just become part of the counter. And I feel like at networking meetings, when people are just saying the same thing over and over and over again, they become part of the counter. Like you just don't hear it, you don't see it. I don't know. What do you think about that?
That's exactly right. We had somebody in our BNI group who would use the same 60-second presentation. That's where in the meeting, you get to stand up for 60 seconds and tell the room who you're looking for. And it never changed. And so I imagine during his 60-second presentation, people started thinking about what they wanted for dinner or where they were going next after the meeting, because it never changed. And so that is where a lot of people, there's so many ways that people miss the 60-second opportunity. And in BNI, it's called the 60-second presentation, but in other networking groups, it may be called something different.
Yeah, your
But
elevator pitch or
your elevator
whatever.
pitch.
Yeah.
And, they're just, I could go on and on just about that alone, but I don't know what you want, how deep you want me to dig into that particular thing. But
Well, tell me what comes to mind, because now I'm intrigued. You created some curiosity there for me. I'm leaning
okay.
in.
So I have a blog. It's tour 10 on the networkerstourguide.net/blog. And the title is I'm Looking for a Girl in a Red Dress. So when a child becomes lost in a crowded room and we start calling out the child's name, Emily, Emily, I'm looking for Emily. The entire crowd around you cannot help you look for Emily because they don't know what Emily looks like. You do because you're the mother, you're the father, and you've known what she's looked like since day one, but nobody else does. So instead, if you will say, I'm looking for a girl in a red dress who's about 7, or not about, but who's 7, in a hat and blue shoes. Now, those eyes in the entire crowd now become your eyes because they have empathy for you and they want to help you find your lost child. And now they know what to look for. So the biggest mistake people make during this elevator pitch is they want to establish credibility and trust, which you can't do in 60 seconds. And they want to be a billboard, a commercial. When instead, in my mind, networking is about finding opportunities for others first. And so if the room doesn't know who you're looking for, how can they help you? It may be fine and wonderful that you have 10 locations and that your operating hours are from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. But that doesn't help anybody find a referral for you. But instead, if you put a picture in their mind of who you're looking for, and then you tell the room how to bring you up, those are the two main elements. Who am I looking for, and how do I bring you up? They're more likely to take action when they hear, because if you've painted a picture in their mind of their friend, their mom, their neighbor, then they're more likely to bring you up because it's not going to be weird. They're not going to walk into their grandma's house as she's standing over the pot of chili and point at her and say, you need better insurance. They aren't going to do that. But if you give them a question to ask, once you've described who you're looking for, when your neighbor who is doing XYZ, when you hear your neighbor complain about XYZ, ask them if they've considered, and then you frame that question. What would be the question that somebody might ask where your name naturally comes up? Whatever that question is, that's what you tell the room to ask when they've found your ideal client. You're Emily. That is so much better than just standing up for 60 seconds and telling about how your business hours and how you love your job and how long you've been in business. That's so popular. People do that all the time. We've been in business 10 years. I've never had somebody ask me, Faithann, I'm looking for an electrician. Who do you know? But they must have been in business 10 years. No one's ever asked me that. They just want the electrician.
Yeah.
So the time it takes you to say, we've been in business 10 years is time that you don't have to paint a picture. I'm looking for, if I were an electrician, this is what I would say. I'm looking for that neighbor who just built an outdoor, who just got a pool. And now they're spending a lot more time outside. When you hear your friend who brag about their pool, ask them if they've considered installing some outdoor lighting. See how it, and then you go from there. So now the people who know people who've just had a pool installed, that's a picture of somebody, right? That's not just a general anybody. I can help anybody with a house.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the main mistake is people don't know, they don't paint a picture, they don't tell us how to bring them up. And then the last mistake that is more common too is that they don't treat that 60 seconds as special to them. It's their turn to shine, and they just think of it as, oh, it's my turn. Okay, let me see. What am I going to say? What am I going to say? Well, I'm Faithann with the Network's Tour Guide. They mumble and bumble through it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't prepare because they think that when the time comes, I'll know what to say. And then they don't. It doesn't come out very well. And so then your credibility kind of drops a little bit because you're so insecure, you're hesitant, you ramble on.
Yeah.
And that's another mistake that people make. It's two things. It's something to take seriously, and it's the time where you get to shine. It's your 60 seconds. It's no one else's. Do not let the people in the room's dinner plans compete with your 60 seconds. No. This is my 60 seconds. And so I'm going to craft it in a way that you have to stop thinking about your dog, your sister, last night, what you're going to do when you get home, and you're going to pay attention to me because I'm going to paint a picture for you of who I'm looking for, and I'm going to tell you how to bring me up.
This is brilliant. We're already like so deep into this. And okay, so just for the audience, a few of the things that I've written down already. And this is exactly why I asked Faithann to come on and talk about this, because from a networking standpoint, if you're not thinking about crafting your pitch or crafting your 60 seconds, however you frame that time, your special time as she's referring to it, and making it memorable in the minds of the people who are listening to it, it is a throwaway. And so the three things that I think you've already given us that are gold is that stating who you're looking for is so important. The other thing I just want to comment here is you do want to stand out from the crowd. You don't want to be the person who sounds like everybody else. I know when I teach around crafting a pitch, one of the things I teach is not saying who you help, because everybody says who you help. I always say who hires you. And I remember doing this one time. I was at an event, and I think there were like 20 coaches. I was one of the coaches who was asked to participate in this event. And it was kind of like a speed dating coaching thing. And they had all of the 20 of us stand up in the front of the room and give our little like 30-second kind of pitch, right? Before people decided who they were going to sit down with. And I probably was, I don't know, 15th in line, right? To like go. And every single person before me said, I help, blah, blah, blah. And then when I stood up and I said, women business owners who've been in business for a year to 10 years hire me to do blah, blah, blah. And instantly it made a difference. And then the person who was like 18th in line, she had kind of attended like a class with me before, but wasn't like a longtime client or anything, but she was one of the coaches in the room. And then she used the exact kind of framework that I used. And then she pulled me aside later and she was like, oh my gosh, Nikki, you instantly stood out just by changing that. So for you to give this suggestion about state who you're looking for, that already has you stand out from the crowd of however many people are getting up and giving their 60-second, pre-recorded, right? Or however you want to look at this. And then the second thing you said is give them the question to ask. And this is one of the places I think most of us fall down is, and I hear this with clients a lot too, where they're like, well, I just want to ask people for referrals. Well, to do what? Like if people aren't referring you, it's probably because you're asking too much of them. So by giving them a really specific question to ask somebody, that's easy. That's one question. That's not you word vomiting your, 2-page, like basically resume on somebody and asking them to like become your mouthpiece. A simple question. I love that. And then the third thing you said too is, sorry, and then that you use that time like it's special. Anybody who gets up at a talk and says it like they're saying it off the cuff and it just rolls off their tongue, I guarantee you they have practiced. The people who get up and fumble and, bumble around, like you said, these are the people who think, oh, I can just wing it. I'm good off the cuff. Most people who you think are really good off the cuff have practiced. They've said it many times out loud, so it rolls off their tongue like it's natural. We were talking about this idea of giving them the question versus the resume.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the negative side of that, when you don't, you're essentially asking the room to prospect for you. Now,
Yes.
who has time to do that? I don't have
No.
time to prospect for anybody except myself. But I can ask a question to my grandma if I know what the question is. In fact, I was just at a birthday party recently, and somebody there had just purchased a Tesla, and he was so proud of that Tesla. Oh, he loved it. And we were all looking at it, and one of my referral partners came to my mind. And so it was an insurance. I'm like, how's the insurance on it? Because I was going to go in a direction, and it just kind of, his answer didn't give me anything more to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that referral partner. I'm going to say, what do I say? What do I ask when somebody's just gotten a Tesla? Because he's going to know better the question to ask that's going to lead him and lead the conversation where I can bring him up. I tried, and it fell flat. And you get a sense of, okay, if I sound like I'm pitching for somebody, it's not going to work. But if I'm asking them, well, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about hiring a blah, blah, blah to help you with blah, blah, blah? Then, like you always say, you're asking them a question the brain wants to answer. So it's learning. So I have to learn what the insurance agent's question is when somebody gets a Tesla, because right now, anyone who gets in where I'm at, in my demographic area, there's not a lot of Teslas. So when those people get Teslas, what are they more likely to do? They're more likely to brag about it. And at the end of that brag is a referral. I just need to be better educated on how to make it happen, or how to try. I can't control if it happens, but I need to be better educated. So, I'm not just waiting for these referrals to land in my lap. I'm not waiting for someone to call me and say, Faithann, I need better insurance quote. Who do you know? I don't wait. I'm listening all the time. I'm listening for questions that I can ask that would help me bring up my referral partners.
So you do, I think, have what I wish we all did, right? Is this mindset that networking is about serving others, not just who can I get out of this? Where can I find the new client? Like really being a good partner, a good networker, a good referrer, I think is another way that really elevates your credibility in the room when you're the person who can easily make good referrals, not just like, the examples that we've given here of like, if you don't know what to say and you're just like not going to do it. You're not going to think about it. So here you are at a birthday party and you're thinking about what is a question that I can ask. So here's my question that I want to bring this back from a Mastering Excellence series, because I think we can all learn from Faithann in this moment. I know I'm learning right now is, if I were to stand in for you for a day, right? So I get to take on the way you think, the way you process this idea. When you find yourself in a situation like that, what's going on in your mind that you're thinking, okay, what question could I ask this person who has this particular situation, in this case, the new Tesla? What is the question that I could ask that would maybe allow for me to offer a referral for somebody who I care about in my networking group? What's going through your mind there?
What's going through my mind is that when I started networking in 2018, for real, networking saved my window cleaning business through COVID. I would not be in business. Window Cleaning Plus would not be in existence if it weren't for my network. And I have a quick story about this. So it was March 2020. There was a weekend in March. It was the turning point where COVID in our business showed its ugly face. So what would happen is my husband and I would often be out on the route cleaning windows in addition to the other truck that we had with a crew. But ours was a little bit lighter because I had all the other stuff I had to do. So It may be 2 or 3 times a week. My husband and I would be together cleaning windows, and sometimes we would serve commercial accounts. And what would happen is we'd be at the end of the day, it was a Friday. I mean, I remember the exact day it was. And we'd say, okay, Men's Warehouse, do you want to do that today or do you want to put it off till next week? Because the beautiful thing about window cleaning and for commercial clients is you don't really make an appointment each time. If they're on a monthly rotation, you just show up whenever it's around the same time of the month. Each time. You don't have to schedule it. So this would happen often. It's Friday afternoon, it's 2:00, and you're tired. Do we want to do Men's Warehouse this week or can we put it off to next week? What about Cheddar's? Do we want to do it now or do we want to? This was common. And that Friday, all day, don't come. I was getting emails. Don't come. Suspend service. Service suspended. Service canceled from our commercial clients. So when my husband said, hey, what do you think about putting Men's Warehouse off till next week? I said to him, if we don't do it today, there's a good chance it's not going to be here for us next week. And I went home expecting all of the residential clients to do the same thing. So I was just waiting for the end of our business to just spiral in front of me into a deep, dark, black hole. The residential clients never stopped, never canceled. They did not cancel. Now, go back 2 years, 2018, I joined my BNI group. My very first referral was for residential. And when you are in a room full of people where you feel like you've been given the jersey in the major leagues, they've invited you in to be part of their business, you can't say no. You better have good reason to say, no, I'm sorry, we don't do residential. We only do commercial. It's easy to type that in a Google reply. It's not so easy when it's somebody looking at you and say, hey, I want you to come clean the windows in my house. So from 2018 to 2020, our referral group forced us to learn how to serve residential clients. The residential clients that never canceled during COVID, which would have never happened. We would have never learned how to do that better than we were doing it. We were barely doing it when we bought the route. So in my mind, when that friend is talking about a Tesla and I want to make a referral, in my mind, what I'm thinking is, I owe it. I mean, I'm almost getting emotional right now.
I'm getting like I can feel I can feel the emotion. You got me.
I owe it to them because they kept us in business. And it's not so much that each individual person kept me in business, because the person I'm thinking of wasn't even in the group when during 2020, I don't think. But it's the idea of business is so hard. Why wouldn't I at a birthday party think Tesla insurance? I mean, it's a sentence. It's not like I'm building a house for somebody. That's what goes through my mind, is that I owe so much to it. And there's 2 other, which we don't have time to go into, but there's 2 other specific instances where my networking group was almost a lifesaver for me personally. So I just owe it. And it's fun.
Yeah. What a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you did get me. Like I can feel the tears in the back of my eyes there of like that people have carried you through. I can't even it makes me want to tell a story, but I can't because I know I'm going to lose it. Of the people who've carried me in the toughest, darkest moments. Wow. So amazing to be thinking about, I owe it, but in the most generous way, right? Of setting yourself up. And I also love that you made this distinction that it's not that you feel like you owe it to a specific person because it wasn't necessarily that person that's in insurance that, sent you X number of referrals, so you owe them X number back. You're looking at this more from a collective standpoint. Is that right? Just to me, it's are you doing good work in the world? And just because the person who you're helping right now might not send you a referral, but by you doing this good work in the world and helping this person, somebody is going to help you at some point and or has helped you in the past, and therefore you are going to pay it forward.
I told my business coach, because I started a networking class, 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about it. And I said, Danielle, when she was another person who pulled me through COVID, and it was through networking. That's when we started working together because I thought we were going to lose the business. And I can't remember how it came up, but I said, Danielle, when you offered to come alongside me during COVID that summer, I've never forgotten that. And I said, I want to be the person that says that someone else says that about, not because I want glory, but I'm saying through this class, I want to be the person that somebody 4 years from now says, yeah, I almost stopped networking, but I took this class and now, you know what I mean? I want to pay it forward. And those people who are meaningful, they stick in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes as business owners, we can keep our heads down and feel alone. And one of the things that I am noticing from you is that networking has been such a big part. You take it so seriously, and serious, but in the most generous, like fun way too, right? Like you have fun with it. And that you're not letting yourself just put your head down and feel alone. Like you're really building community. And I feel really inspired by that. So thank you. I want to get back to this idea of crafting really memorable responses and this idea so that you're making an impression that allows for you to grow your business. So we've talked about a few things in that way. And I know that you have a framework. And I'm wondering if now is the appropriate time for you to share a little bit about this framework, because again, this idea of crafting something that makes you memorable, it feels sometimes like an uphill battle. It can feel hard. So I love a framework, you know that. So I'm interested, is now the appropriate time to kind of dig into the framework a little bit?
I'd love to share about it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Please.
So my definition of networking is providing opportunities for others so that you have standing to ask for those opportunities from those same people when you need them. Now, picture in your mind, you have a river and you have a bank on the left side, on the west side, and a bank on the east side of this river, and you have a bridge that connects the west to the east. So the work that we need to do on the west side is providing opportunities for others. And we do that by opening up our context to those people that we trust in business. We do that by shouting them out on social media. We do that by planting seeds about how they might work with the people that we know, like, and trust. We do that by setting up three-way lunches. I've started a practice now where I try really hard once a month just to connect two people that don't know each other, that both know me, and we do a three-way lunch. And it's wonderful. And you just watch what happens. You just kind of sit back and watch it. It's great. Mm-hmm. So that's all the work on that west side of the bridge, is providing opportunities for others. Now let's say you want to go over to the east side. That's the asking for opportunities for yourself. So often we don't do that. And so what people do is they say, I've been networking for a long time and I've been giving, and nobody does anything for me. And that's because they're working on the west side. They're providing opportunities. They don't cross over and they don't do the work on the east side of the bridge. So the bridge is the standing. You know how standing, like you take a case to court and the judge doesn't vote for or against the plaintiff. It says you don't have standing. You know, you're in the wrong court or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, the standing on that bridge, the standing is the rapport building, is the memorable way that you carry yourself. It's the giving. That's what allows you to walk over to the other side. Now, congratulations if you've walked over to the other side, if you've built rapport, if you've given. But we don't just stand over there on that other side. We have to work too. And that's why the elevator pitch is so important. There's work to be done. You have to tell people how to look for referrals for you. You have to be willing to ask things. I ask things all the time. I asked somebody to be on their podcast about a year ago, and I got turned down. But still got to ask.
Yeah.
And it's not my fault that they don't understand that I would have been a great guest. Because I don't just ask random people. You have to ask people if they're willing to make introductions on your behalf too. If you never ask them, again, you're wanting them to kind of be your brain, and they don't have enough capacity to be their brain and your brain. But they can answer an email that says, hey, I see that on LinkedIn that you know this person. This is somebody I'd really like to be in front of. Would it be okay? Would you mind making an introduction on my behalf? And here's some language. If you are willing, you can use this language or you can use your own.
Yeah.
So that takes work.
Yeah.
But if you never do that, then you are going to be that person, built up resentment. Nobody ever sends me any referrals. So the standing is the bridge that connects you. So that's another reason why we all get that gross feeling when we're at the networking meeting and the realtors coming around, I shouldn't say realtor because that makes that whole industry. I'm not saying I know so many wonderful realtors, but any profession, and they're
it
walking
can
around.
be anything.
They're just passing out the cards. You have not created any standing, sir, ma'am. Get out of my face with your card. You have no standing. You have no right to do that to me.
Yeah.
Because you haven't done any work on the west side of that bridge for me. So when you're talking about creating curiosity about yourself, that's work on the east side of asking for opportunities. Because another thing too is that if you don't ingratiate yourself, is that the right word? If you don't have any kind of magnetism at all for people so that people like you, if you haven't done any work to leave a good impression, then you could do a lot of work for them. But if they don't really like you, you got to make it easy for people.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you're speaking the stuff that I feel like I teach this too from a business development standpoint. The thing that most people don't want to do, and it's the thing I always say to do first, is to ask the people who know, like, and trust you to open doors and make introductions on your behalf. And it's the one that people are like, well, what else you got, Nikki? Because I don't want to ask anybody. But I love the way that you framed this. Again, this is 100% why I wanted you to come on this podcast and talk about this, is because you've really articulated in the most brilliant, easy way to create a picture, right? Like, I've got my picture in my mind of the river. I've got the picture on the west side of, like, doing the work on the west side so that when you cross the bridge and you decide to go to the east side, you have some standing, and you also realize it's work too. It isn't just, I'm going to do all this work, give, and then stand back and expect all these returns to come to me. I'm willing to put in the work on both sides of the river. I think that is so brilliant. And I think there's many areas of my life where I give, and at some point start to feel a little resentful. And now I'm thinking about, like, have I actually done the work on the other side where I'm wanting something in return? Like, have I asked for it? Because if I haven't asked for it, it's kind of on me to ask and not expect other people to pick up this, like, subtle cue that I have maybe given off. It needs to be a direct ask. And, in sales, asking is one of the most important skills to learn how to do. Asking for the sale, asking, somebody if they're interested in hearing about, your offer, asking permission to put offers in front of people. Like, all these things are about asking, and that it goes on both sides. I also love this idea of this 3-way lunch. I think that is so brilliant. And another one of those, Faithann, just perfect examples of the way that you're building. And I do think And even when I teach around, asking people to make introductions, I have a section where I teach now, keep in mind, you also need to be the person who's making connections for others. And so the way you just articulated it is so brilliant and so beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing the framework, because it's such a clear picture. Such a clear picture.
Thank you.
Yeah, so good. Okay. I know we're getting to time, so I just want to ask you, is there any one last piece of advice before we go into what I call the little something extra section, where I do still have a few more questions for you, but is there any other one thing that you want us to know when we're thinking about networking and crafting memorable impressions in particular?
Yeah. So one of my people in my BNI group sends out a monthly newsletter. He's in IT. I had him on a guest on my podcast, and he's got a section in there about where he does business development a little bit, and he takes authors. I love it. It's my favorite section of his newsletter. And a few months ago, he sent one out about the story brand, Donald Miller.
Uh-huh.
So I picked up on it real quick. And so this isn't my advice. I got it from Donald Miller, but we talked about making a memorable impression.
Mm-hmm.
This is what this is something really small too, that you can do. You don't have to think about crafting an entire elevator pitch, which I do have a manual for that. If you go to my website, you can purchase it. But this is something small you can do. So he gives an example of the at-home chef. He says, this wasn't him, but he told this example of, instead of telling people what you do right away, put the problem that you solve in front of them and then tell them what you do. So this at-home chef, what do you do? He says, well, you know how families don't eat together anymore? And when they do, they don't eat healthy. And so now you've painted a picture.
Mm-hmm.
The person's probably like, oh, yeah. And they're thinking about the pizza they had last night and the soccer practice that they had to run in their kid to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an at-home. And so after that pause, I'm an at-home chef. So the problem is, and I would recommend this for those professions that we all think we know, but we don't. So realtor's a good example, because we all think what a realtor does is sticks a sign in the yard and walks away and comes to closing a month later with money, or receiving money. But that's not what a realtor does. So if I were a realtor, I would be all over this. Well, you know how XYZ, I'm the person you call before. And so it's fun, because I go to this networking meeting for Window Cleaning Plus. So most of all my networking is the Networker's Tour Guide. However, there is this one meeting where it's a bunch of realtors. It's a broker who opens this meeting up to anybody that wants to come. And so I go because it's great for me.
Yeah.
For Window Cleaning Plus. And so I'll stand up and I'll say, you know how I did this last week. I said, you know how when you're walking through a house and in your mind, you're thinking of all the things that you need to tell the client to do before they list their house? Well, I'm the person you tell them to call before they grab the Windex. So Perfect. I put the problem in front first, and then boom. So for a realtor, you know how I'm the person you call before or during or when or after you do this thing. So think about how you might frame something like that for yourself. And I did this at another networking meeting for Networker's Tour Guide, and this nonprofit guy talked about his nonprofit for a long time, and he's like, well, what do you do? And I looked at him, I leaned forward, and I said, you know how sometimes it can be hard for business owners to walk into rooms of people they don't know and have good conversations? And he went, yeah. I said, well, I give people the confidence and the strategies to do that better. And he was like, well, it was the very first time I'd done that. Like, oh, I found a winner, man. That's cool.
Yeah. I love that. Donald Miller, he's brilliant. Okay. Thank you. That was so helpful. I love that. All right. As we go into kind of wrapping this up and bringing it to a close, I always like to ask a few little something extra questions about you. So one of my favorite questions to ask people is, what's something that brings you joy right now?
Okay, so I have another podcast of my late father's sermons, and my sister and I do it together. So that brings me a lot of joy.
Oh, are you willing to share the name?
The Timeless Gospel, and it's old sermon tapes from the late 80s and from the early 2000s. And so we play a sermon, and then my sister and I talk about it afterwards.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. What is something people would be surprised to learn about you? This is the stumper, usually.
Yeah. This is really small, but I can't stand ketchup.
Really? I love that answer. That might be
I
my favorite answer anybody's ever given. Oh my gosh. I love when people have those little quirks.
hmm
Mine is I don't like when the cheese and the mayo and the bread touch. I think the cheese should not be attached to where the mayo and the bread is in a sandwich. So weird.
Oh, okay. I'm good with cheese and mayo. Just ketchup tastes like, I won't tell you what it tastes like to
But you
me.
don't care for it.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
Okay.
And my
So
husband,
interesting.
yeah, we have this running joke, and so he'll take the fast food out of the bag, and then he'll take the little packet and he'll say, "Here you go. I know you want this." Okay.
Oh, our significant others. They always know
Yeah.
us so well. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. What's something exciting going on in your business right now?
This is local, but it is exciting for me, but it's very
Yeah.
local.
Okay.
I am in the process of developing a calendar. It's called Premium OKC Networking. And so it would be the calendar that if you value what I think about networking meetings, you would sign up monthly for a calendar and also a community aspect to see the meetings that I recommend that you attend. And it has
Ooh.
all of the information about each meeting. It has when and where they meet, how often they meet, so that you can put them on your own calendar. You can just see, because each organization has their own calendar,
Mm-hmm.
but without having to go to each one, you could see many of them that I recommend on one screen. And then also the community aspect of it, much like a Facebook group, but
Mm-hmm.
member only.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on right now.
Oh, that is exciting. I know you've shared that a little bit with me before, and I'm really excited for you to do this. Okay,
Yeah.
so how can people listening right now connect with you, especially people who are like, I need some Faithann in my life to help me figure out how to make myself memorable at these networking meetings?
Yeah, you can go to thenetworkerstourguide.net/products, and that's where the referrals in 60 seconds manual is. And it's a playbook. It's a way to craft. By the end of it, if you work through it, by the end of it, you will have an elevator pitch ready with the steps that it's not really mine. It's B&I's framework, but for some reason they don't really teach it very much. But it is there. It's where I learned it,
Yeah,
with the introduction, the testimonial, who you're looking for, the connection, and then the restating of your name and your business.
love it.
That's all in there. And then I do have a private Facebook group that is free to join, and it's the Networkers Tour Guide on Facebook. And we talk about where we're networking each week. And every Friday, I let you put an offer up in the group, and we just kind of have fun in there. We talk about like good referrals that we've received, good one-to-ones that we've had, all things networking. So it's not a networking group, so to speak.
Right,
It's just a
right.
place for people who network to have fun and get resources.
Fantastic.
So the last thing is that I do have free resources. So if you go to thenetworkerstourguide.net/resources, then there's 2 downloads that you can have. One is a 10 questions to ask in a one-to-one, and the other one is a memorable first impressions download.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Faithann. I'm such a fan of you, and I'm so really honored and blessed to know you. And I'm just wishing you continued success in all the things that you're doing, and you're making a really wonderful impact in the world and teaching the things you're teaching. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so very much. It's quite an honor. I love it. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. And for you, the listener, I hope you found this very helpful today and you had at least 1 to 2 to maybe 10 takeaways. I know I've got a lot going on in my head right now, thinking about things that I've learned now from Faithann, from just even today's conversation. Would you please share? Like, let us know. Tag us on social media. What was the thing that stood out to you? Definitely reach out and connect with Faithann. And thank you for listening. And I'm wishing you continued success in all you're doing as well. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.